In case you've been living under a rock for the last couple months, you'll have heard mention of fake news all over the place. I think everyone can agree that widely available false information can be a problem, but make no mistake, just because you disagree with something doesn't make it fake news. CNN came out with a list of fake news sites consisting of many conservative outlets back in November. Surely only fringe and racist extremist sites were included in this list, right? No, wrong. Breitbart, Daily Wire, Project Veritas, bunch of other ones were all on there. Look, I realize that Alex Jones is a bit wacky at times, but to slap the fake news label on the entire organization sounds like an attempt at censorship to me. The best part of all this is that the list was created by a notoriously left-leaning professor from Merrimack College named Melissa Zimdars or something. And who would have guessed that she specializes in social justice? Wow, great source, CNN. But if you've been keeping up with what's going on, this is old news to you. Don't get me wrong, fake news isn't exclusive to liberal media outlets, of course not. As far as I know, Pizzagate is a very weak conspiracy theory with no credibility and shouldn't be taken seriously either. But I'd argue the left has been much guiltier of this, ironically enough. Today I wanted to cover CNN, the organization claiming to be fighting against this so-called fake news, and the top 5 most fake news-like actions they've taken in the last year or so. Not only did I have an easy time finding 5 good examples, but it was difficult to narrow them down. That should tell you something about the organization's credibility. So without further ado, here are CNN's top 5 f***ups this year. It's no secret by now that Hillary Clinton had the media completely on her side. Everyone can agree on that one, right? I mean, it's hard to argue against that when Newsbusters collected data from ABC, CBS, and NBC and determined that they talked about Trump's alleged sexual assault, which, there's no evidence for, about 7 times longer than they covered Hillary's emails right after WikiLeaks released them. But could they have made their bias any more obvious? They cut off a congressman when they didn't like what he was saying.
What do you think Donald Trump needs to do to come out on top?
Well, on the character issue, the public, 2/3 or more of the public knows that Hillary Clinton's a liar. She can't be trusted. And now the 2 faces of Hillary Clinton are coming out. The fact through WikiLeaks that she says one thing and...
Oh, no. All right, let's see if we can get Congressman Collins back. Obviously, we just lost his satellite feed. That sucks.
I mean, this makes sense considering that Time Warner, the owners of CNN, donated around $400,000 to her campaign.
Remember, Hillary Clinton has some vulnerabilities herself, even as she calls for criminal justice reform because of her support in the 1990s for anti-crime legislation that ultimately helped contribute to this era of mass incarceration that she now speaks out again.
We just lost Breonna Keeler.
You get the point. If interviewing your own employee in order to further push your narrative isn't fake news, I don't know what is. This dude, John Gerkovich, or however you pronounce his name, was interviewed by CNN after Trump's victory and expressed his outrage at the result. Fair enough. I mean, even if his argument was that the Electoral College wasn't fair and only the popular vote should matter, which I disagree with, he's still allowed to have that opinion. But the kicker here is that John worked for CNN as a cameraman years ago, which they failed to admit in their own publication of the video on YouTube. It was only after other uploaders on YouTube published the full segment was it found out that CNN just staged an interview in order to push the idea that citizens were devastated. While making this video, I looked the guy up on Facebook and he claims that the fake news story of him being interviewed by his employer is being pushed by Russia Today. That seems to be the theme lately for the left, blame the Russians. Speaking of which, now let me preface this by saying I have no idea if Russia tampered with the 2016 presidential election or not. Personally, considering their past, it would surprise me if they were totally clean. However, what's been taken as gospel lately is yes, Russia did hack the election and they did have an impact on the result. That's a very serious allegation to make against a sovereign entity when you have zero evidence of this. No, taking the CIA's word for it doesn't count. Need I remind you that the CIA also missed Pearl Harbor, the fall of the Berlin Wall, and pushed the idea that Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction leading to the disastrous invasion of Iraq, and we're still dealing with the consequences today? So far we've been provided with no evidence of any Russian tampering, and certainly no evidence that the supposed hacking had any sway on the results of the election. According to CNN's own poll, 58% of voters agreed that Donald Trump still would have won the election regardless of Russian interference, which, by the way, we're supposed to take as a given at this point. Even if Russia did tamper in the state's affairs, I'm still calling CNN out on this one for running information without verifying its validity first. If Russia is found guilty, I'll be quick to condemn them for tampering in another nation's election, but provide me with some proof, damn it. So this next one isn't just fake news, it's bordering on fascist. And unlike certain protesters, I believe I'm using this word in the right context in this situation.
Just so we can understand the standard here, what is a fascist?
So a fascist is someone who's organizing a mass movement that's attacking women, immigrants, black people, other minority groups in a movement of genocide. That's what a fascist is.
Okay. So it's someone who's committing violence?
And it's someone who's committing violence and who's trying to organize other people to commit violence.
Okay.
And Milo Yiannopoulos is a fascist.
Chris Cuomo of CNN wants you to believe that it was illegal for you to possess, and by that he means read, let's be clear on that, WikiLeaks documents unless you hear it from CNN.
Also interesting is, remember, it's illegal to possess these stolen documents. It's different for the media. So everything you learn about this, you're learning from us. And in full disclosure, let's take a look at what is in there and what it means. Joining us now, CNN.
First of all, that's not even remotely true. And second of all, what do you mean it's different for the media? Oh, I see. You guys have a free pass, so you can interpret these fairly objective emails to your audience to fit your agenda, all the while leading your viewers to believe that they're not allowed to view them because you don't want them to come to the conclusion that your narrative is bullshit. Got it.
You dirt-eating piece of slime! You scum-sucking pig! You son of a motherless goat!
I say this is fascist because CNN is actively attempting to silence any criticism or opposition by manipulating their audience. I am well aware that fascism usually pertains to the government, but I think it applies in this case. Somewhere out there, Chris Cuomo scared someone not super up to date on their politics into not researching Clinton's emails due to false fear of prosecution. But coming from a fake news organization that attempts to label other networks or outlets with opposing information as fake and encourages their audience to do the same, is anyone really surprised? So Twitter was ablaze not too long ago with people tweeting at the president-elect, #POTUS or #GoldenShower. Why? Well, it's because BuzzFeed, the failing pile of garbage as Trump so aptly put it, released an unsubstantiated 35-page blackmail dossier that outlined that Trump was in with the Russians and that he paid Russian prostitutes to pee on the furniture.
As far as BuzzFeed, which is a failing pile of garbage, writing it, I think they're going to suffer the consequences. They already are.
CNN also decided to pick this story up without doing any verification whatsoever. In case you hadn't guessed already, the story's totally fake and is supposedly based on fan fiction from 4chan. And to no one's surprise, CNN deflected the blame and tried to explain they always carefully publish their content. Of course you do. This takes the #1 spot because not only is it about the most ridiculous excuse for an attack on Donald Trump, apart from the fact that he's a bad businessman, but it proves that CNN will do pretty much anything to push their agenda. I mean, did no one at CNN HQ stop for a second and say, wait, maybe we should fact check this story about peeing on furniture to make sure we don't come out with the most embarrassing story for our organization in at least the past year? I didn't even mention CNN's treatment of Trump during the second debate, the leaked debate questions, the oversampling and manipulating of polls during the election cycle, or the recent headline about Nancy Sinatra being upset that her father's music was being used at Trump's inauguration. This list could have been the top 50 fake news stories CNN has run. Look, I'm all for freedom of the press, of course I am. But when you have an organization this large that consistently lies and spreads misinformation all over the world, you have a problem. Expect more of the same from CNN. Based on the recent poll that suggested their credibility is higher than ever, they're not getting the message, and it doesn't sound like they will be anytime soon.
Please clap.